Good evening, you lovely people. How are we? It's good to be back for another video. This one's going to be a bit more beating around the bush on this one. Essentially, you could tell by the title of this video, has the IPF got a hidden drug problem? Now, for many years, the IPF has been scrutinised for its lack of drug testing, despite being a drug-tested federation. Sorry, it's way too late to be filming this, but the IPF has been under scrutiny for many years for not actually drug testing its athletes as much as it should be. As someone who lives in the IPF, I pay every time I go to a national meet or above. You have to pay a drug testing fee, and I've never been drug tested, and I kind of want my money back. But essentially, everybody pays the fee, but yet no one really gets drug tested. So I don't know if anybody was, but at Commonwealths, I didn't hear of anybody being drug tested, and for a major event like that, you probably should. It's something that's pretty important, especially for the integrity of the sport. If you're going to claim that you're a drug-free federation, then you have to at least make people, shit themselves every now and then. You got to keep them on their toes, right? Now, out of my personal experience in competing, and I've only ever competed in the IPF. I've never stepped foot in any other federation, like the BPU is the next biggest one. I've not had anything to do with that. I've been involved with some strongmen before, and I've been to strongman meets, not competitively, but I've seen them. And I think we can all agree that PEDs, steroids are rampant in strength sports. Let's just fucking admit it, all right? And there's a few athletes, I have my few, that I believe are on the super source. Now, I won't name who I think is, and I couldn't actually say for certain, so I'm not going to throw names out there because that's out of order. But everybody knows that there's somebody on it, right? You've got a whole federation with thousands of lifters in. One of them's going to be doing it, right? And these are, and the people that you just know of are just the ones on Instagram. Nathaniel Messiah and Russell Ory, and there's the other fella who went viral for a deadlift at IPF Worlds. Those are just a small population. When you actually go into the IPF and their world records, it's a very big world in powerlifting. There's plenty of lifters that you've never ever heard of holding world records. Now, I've heard stories of people being harassed. I've heard stories of people being drug tested non-stop. And then I've, like most people, don't know anyone that's been drug tested, right? So there is a bit of a common problem here. And I think that if WADA's going to regulate the sport and all the money that goes into it from every competitor all across the country, there should be a bit more presence, if you will. And I think something that I wanted to go over, I was having a chat with a guy, Wesley McGuinness. Shout out to him, by the way. He probably won't ever watch this, but shout out. Great guy, but we was having a chat by the pool after Commonwealth about people on steroids in the IPF. And he said the same as I do. We can't say for certain that people would do. But when you look at record sheets, it's quite surprising. So I'm going to pull up on screen now the BPU records, which is the British Powerlifting Union. And I'm also going to show you the IPF for Britain as well. So these aren't the World Powerlifting Championships, which the BPU, or World Powerlifting Congress, whatever, the BPU is associated with. This is just all British records. I'm British, so I ain't going further than that. But in many cases, the IPF actually has higher numbers than the BPU does. So for those of you that don't know, the BPU is an untested federation. You can waltz in, sweating your nut off, veins popping, just blasting, right? You can just come in and just be absolutely gilled up, and that's not a problem. And that's fine, because that's, I think, like strongman, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And more power to them. And they also use different bars, slightly different organisation of competition, stuff like that. Usually, from what I know, they're a bit more interesting. However, if that floats your boat, I know a few people who have competed in the BPU and have a better time, which, if you enjoy it, then fuck it, do what you want. But the records are very, very similar, if not more. So I'm in the 82 or the 83 kilo category in the IPF. I fluctuate between that and the 93s. And I'm looking at the 82.5 kilo category they've got in the BPU. And it turns out that the bench is 20 kilos heavier in the IPF. And I think the deadlift as well. We have a 315 deadlift in the men's open. Go to British powerlifting. And we have a 363 deadlift in the 83s. Now, it's only 500 grams, so it's still the same fucking class, all right? But this can raise concern, to say the least. But I don't think it actually does. I don't think it actually fucking does. And I'm going to explain why I think that the IPF is cleaner than most people from the outside might think. You have to remember the amount of lifters that go through the IPF is insane. The IPF is the biggest powerlifting federation in the world, hands down, non-negotiable, right? So the pool of lifters that they're going to have is much larger. And the thing is with the IPF is a lot of people are like, they would live and die for the IPF, They will never compete anywhere else. I'm pretty similar. I wouldn't compete in the BPU. I only want to compete in the IPF. I think it's a fair playing field, or as fair as you could get from any other powerlifting federation. And it's where the competition's at. If all the competition was in the BPU, I'd probably be in the BPU. However, it's here. And the refereeing is pretty fucking harsh a lot of the time. So I think it's just a better place to go. So the records might be higher, but you have to think, if there's twice the amount of lifters coming through into British powerlifting every year, then the chances of a higher record being set is going to happen, right? It's going to happen. So you have to give that the benefit of the doubt and say, if the pool's larger, the talent pool's also going to be larger with it as well. The outliers of society, the people who just come in and just destroy the competition, is going to be far more common, right? But in my closing argument, I don't think that many people have it in them to cheat. And I know that can seem really naive of myself, but a lot of people just wouldn't fucking risk it. And the reason is because I could report somebody in the IPF if I had enough evidence to support that fact. So it's a very tight-knit community, I'd say, the strength training community, and word travels fast. If anyone got a fucking whiff that you was on steroids and you are going to this competition and I'm your competition, right? And I've just caught a whiff of that, I'm telling you fucking now, without a doubt, everyone's finding out. And I'll make sure to the fucking last breath I take that you go fucking down. Now, people might see that as snitching, but if it's also down to the competitors to keep the sport fair. It's not only down to the WADA to make sure the drug tests are in place. It's down to all the lifters to keep everybody else in check. If I'm competing alongside someone and let's say they trust me and the first thing I would do is tell them not to do it. because it's not fair. It's just genuinely not fair. And even if you think somebody else might be doing it, it doesn't make you right for doing so. Don't do it. If you get caught taking steroids, you immediately get a 4-year ban. 4-year ban and your record just wiped. All the numbers, all the meets you had in all that time will be fucking wiped. And they might even go further back if they think that's necessary. It's just really not worth it. And you're going to always be on your tiptoes all the time thinking, shit, am I going to get drug tested? Am I going to get drug tested? If you're breaking records and you're like number one, I think that it's only right that you should be drug tested. And I think that anyone should be happy to do so because there's nothing to hide. If you, and also to be fair with WADA, if you do refuse the drug test, you also get I think it's a 2-year ban? Something like that, but you get fucked for saying no. So, you know, I think the IPF needs to do a few things. Make it easier for athletes to not report, but to keep everybody else in check, right? I think that there should be more work being done to facilitate a fairer environment and allow the lifters to regulate themselves. I think most people in the sport who compete are competing fairly. Everyone I've competed with, I could probably say with 99% compete fairly. You know, and most people wouldn't have it in them to know that they're a filthy cheat. If you want to take steroids, then fuck off to the BPU because you'd probably have an easier time anyway. You'd probably actually set more records in the BPU. So why not just go there? So there is always the options. And like I said earlier, with the records being so close, what's the point in competing in the IPF on steroids when you could go to the BPU, take steroids, and probably have an easier time getting those records? So there's not actually that much incentive. Well, there's a lot of incentive. The IPF is, you know, winning a gold at a world championship is fucking huge, but, you know, bigger than any other federation ever. However, the risk to reward ratio is just not quite there. It's just not. It's really not. So I think in closing, I think the IPF doesn't have a drug problem. I think that WADA and the drug testing just needs to be upped a little more or made a little bit more visible to everyone else. The fact that there was hundreds of lifters at Commonwealths and I didn't see one enforcement agent of the drug testing. I didn't see one. For all those people all around the world competing, the fact that I didn't see one representative of WADA, crazy. Fucking crazy. So that's all I have to say for today. I hope you enjoyed the video, enjoyed my little rant. I'll catch up with you guys soon and take it easy.